I showed you at the top of the program how Joe Biden's having a hell of a time trying to backtrack and explain his demand that Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power. Here's the latest from NBC America.
The official U.S. government position does not seek regime change of Putin's government.
I wasn't then, nor am I now, articulating a policy change. I was expressing the moral outrage that I feel, and I make no apologies for it.
Today, the president said his words did not muddy the crisis. Complicate the diplomacy of this moment.
No, I don't think it does.
But there is diplomatic pushback, concerns that Putin will use Biden's words as propaganda or provocation. Today in France, President Macron, who still speaks to Putin, trying to broker peace, said, "We can't escalate in either words or actions." Amid this crisis, President Biden's approval rating is down to 40%. 55% disapprove in a new NBC News poll that also found about 7 in 10 Americans express low confidence in the president's ability to deal with the war in Ukraine.
Dear oh dear. Let's bring in Kosha Gada, who's Managing Director of Recastled, a corporate strategy consultancy. She's a commentator as well, joins me live from Melbourne. Good to talk to you again, Kosha. Joe Biden, how can he configure a situation where he's the one under pressure to explain himself rather than Vladimir Putin?
It's tough to unscramble the egg sometimes, and that's certainly what he and his handlers are trying to do, Chris. And look, Biden is somebody who's been in the public eye for half a century, and it's been well documented that he is not the best public speaker. He is very gaffe-prone. But in a situation like this that is so high stakes on the world stage, that problem, transcends beyond being a stylistic issue to a substantive one. And what he said there is really dangerous because it reframed the issue of being about Ukrainian sovereignty or peace for the Ukrainian people into revealing what some people in the corridors of power in Washington, whether in his administration or the permanent military leadership class, believe. And that is that some of them still do believe in this doctrine, this U.S. foreign policy doctrine of regime change. But I can tell you that on the back of the last 20 years where that has been tried, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, with very unpretty results, the U.S. electorate is not aligned with that. So he's got a problem actually domestically back home as well as on the world stage.
Yeah, it's worse than just messy diplomacy and him being very, very unclear, because the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, had to sort of walk back the statements. And then Biden says he's not walking back. So as you say, and I don't think enough people have focused on this yet, it could actually point to a split within the national security leadership of the US, where some actually do want to go down that regime change path, at least trying to encourage it of the Russians.
That's right. And he, to his credit, there are actually a lot of people who do subscribe to that in the administration, reportedly. And Biden, to his credit, so far has shied away from that or has not, pushed that. So it's kind of ironic that his words and his gaffe-prone nature has sort of stepped him into that, even though he's somebody who's actually holding down the fort against that. But there will be a split because in actually both parties, there are sort of the war hawks who subscribe to that philosophy, and there are those who don't. And you're going to see that play out in the upcoming election cycles as well.
Now, the polling we saw there from the NBC story too, he's got low approval ratings and also very, very high levels of people in the States just having no confidence in when it comes to the Ukraine situation, which, of course, is the #1 strategic issue the world is facing right now.
Yep, his polls are continuing to take a turn down, and I think these kinds of things won't help. So foreign policy-wise, that's the #1 issue. And then domestically, much of what your previous guest discussed over here in Australia, a lot of that is happening at a larger scale in America with inflation and rising gas prices and the southern border and everything else. So he's not having a good week, to say the least, and I think a lot more to come as we come into the election cycle for 2022, about the midterms. Even though he's not on the ballot, his party has many seats on the ballot, and then obviously in 24.
Yeah, he's going to have a very, very difficult time. The Democrats are at the midterms.